So today we are talking about sideboard strats. What is a sideboard? How to best utilize your sideboard? All in all. And I gotta say before we start this, genuinely, sideboarding is probably my worst aspect when it comes to the My Hero card game. I think that I'm actually not very good at it. But I get the general concepts. It's just implementing it, I think, is one of the big issues with me as my gameplay. I think playing my main board is really, really good. Making sideboard decisions, very iffy on. My personal opinion. So what is a sideboard? Very strictly, it is 10 bonus cards that you do not put inside of your main deck. So you've got your main deck of 50 cards minimum, plus your character card, all the way up to unlimited number. But let's say that I don't want to play a 60-card deck. I want to keep it at a tight 50-card deck, right? Well, I have 10 bonus cards that I'm allowed to put in the to the side. Hilarious. That will change the way that my sideboard works. I can take anytime that I want to put a sideboard card in, I can have to take a card out of my main board and then it will slot. So there are 10 bonus cards and they cannot be extra copies more than the fourth copy of a card, right? So I can play three copies of a card main boarded and then one copy sideboarded, but maybe it doesn't feel great at 4 main board, right? So I have my 3 and my 1, and then sometimes I will take it out of the sideboard and put it in main, right? They do have to share the same starting symbol as your deck, and it can include characters. The big thing about sideboards is you're not allowed to interact with your sideboard except for the time in between your games. So let's pretend that we have just sat down and we have started the game, right? I flip over my starting character and I am Bakugo. You flip over your starting character, and you are Midoriya. I can't instantly go look at my sideboard and start peeking at what's over there. I can't touch it. I'm not allowed to look at it. It's going to stay there until the game is over, win or lose. From there, I'm allowed to then pick up my sideboard. I can look through it, take the cards out that I would like to use from my sideboard, and then the cards from my deck out from my deck. I'll put those cards in my deck in the pile with my sideboard. I'll take the cards from my sideboard and put them in my deck, shuffle, and then we'll play the game. In the middle of game 2, I can't go look in my sideboard to go see what I took out of my main deck. Maybe I took a very pivotal 1F card out that I think wasn't there, and I'm looking for my outs. I can't go look. No research. I can't go look at it. It has to stay on the table. It has to stay visually apparent, especially on webcam. But I can't mess with my sideboard during the games. I'm only allowed to interrupt from sideboard in between the games. In between. So here's sideboard uses. These are the 3 main ways that I think you can utilize your sideboard and utilize it well, right? You use your sideboard to patch your own holes in your deck. You use your sideboard to punish your rival and the choices they've made, or you can use your sideboard to completely change your play pattern. So as you patch your holes, it is about making your weaknesses better, punishing your rival, amplifying your opponent's weaknesses, or completely change your play pattern. Since we have 10 cards that we get to work with, imagine trading out half of your attack lineup for something else, right? And so patching up yourself is shoring up your block zones. There's plenty of decks that out there that don't utilize excuse me, that don't utilize proper blocking zones, right? They care more about the card text that is available to you, but like, let's pretend that you fight a deck that is exclusively highs. If high blocks are the lowest count in your deck, or maybe your counts are even, right? It's possible that you notice your opponent doesn't play any low attacks, so let's take out some low blocks and put in more high blocks from our sideboard, right? This is a way to utilize it. Deadlock pressure. You notice that in game 1, my opponent built to 10 foundations by turn 2. That means they're probably going to spill over to 11, 12, 15 foundations. And I don't have very much deadlock in my main board because a lot of the decks currently in the format, in set 1 meta, don't go there. So I can make the choice to put in extra deadlock pressure that I feel like I won't need in game 1 because it's not good versus most of the field. Or I could put in more aggro, right? I could put in more offense into my deck or more defense into my deck. I didn't put more defense, but you can sure up of like, oh man, I need to get the game done by turn 3, and that's not normally what my deck does. So I'm gonna put in more attack cards in order to make sure that I have more aggro, right? As opposed to swapping out attack cards, I'm literally taking out foundations or actions or assets, and I'm putting in more attack cards, right? There's more aggro. Or I'll do the opposite, right? I'll take out some attack cards, and I'll put in some good foundations or good actions that help me on defense. This is making sure that your deck is running as efficient as it can versus your opponent, right? This is patching yourself. Punishing your rival. Specific hate cards. There are tons and tons of ways to hate on your opponent, right? You're playing against a Staff Strike deck. Playing cards like Fulfill My Duty in your sideboard is really, really good. But playing that card at a 4 of main board is a little iffy, right? It's a 2/4 with a 3 high block that has a very specific ability that doesn't really affect every single deck in the game. But versus some specific decks, things like that are really, really amazing. Or putting in like an additional copy of Nightwatch, right? Like my opponent has some really key enhances, and I'm playing plenty of actions as is. So maybe I'll bring my Nightwatch from a 2 up to a 3 because I have one in my sideboard. Or things like what's their plans? What's their plan? Resistance. There's a ton of amazing specific hate cards specifically for your opponent, and we're only going to get more as the game evolves. And so punishing your rival, it's really important if you want to sideboard this way, is you have to be able to keep track of what your rival's deck does. You have to be able to keep track of what is their game plan, what is it that they're wanting to do, right? And making sure that you're paying attention to their deck just as much as you're paying attention to your deck. And that's really, really important when you're attempting to punish your rival. There's some decks, right, where like you're just patching yourself, right? Where we just don't care what they're doing. I just want to make my deck more powerful, make my deck more consistent, right? Dead Man Sam, Exploding Pride versus heavy momentum decks, right? Like that is a perfect example of a way to punish your rival for playing their game plan. And then you have changing your play pattern. This is specifically swapping your character or changing up an attack package. The best example that I have for this is in the Otaku 1 deck that I play. I do both of these things as to change up my play pattern. I don't main board the meteor showers. I take the meteor showers and I put them in my sideboard because sometimes playing long strings is really good, but I think versus most of the field, playing really tall home run combats is good. And so I'll put the meteor showers in the sideboard so that I can change up my play pattern as I feel fit. Same thing with, I have Jiro in the sideboard of that. And so that changes up the play pattern because I'm no longer stealing momentum out of my card pool. I'm now pumping a lot of stats. So I want to give a couple of examples of sideboards of decks that I have played at big events, right? There was a 1K for Midoriya Games where I played Zero. And we can talk about like the goals of all of my sideboard cards. And I placed well enough with this deck. So my 10 sideboard slots were Fulfill My Duty, double Go Beyond, double What's Their Plan, double Planning Ahead, one Shock Treatment, one Creepy, one Sticky Balls. And any of these 1-ofs that you see were either 2 or 3-ofs inside of the deck. And so Fulfill My Duty was a 2-of. This was exclusively in there for the response of into the enhanced step because I wanted to stop combo decks in case that they wanted to pop off, right? If you have 2 really good abilities like an Otaku 2 is swinging at you, you don't want them to do the ability on the card and then pump speed. You got to make them choose so that you can then auto block the move and then pick it back up or whatever, and then use Sarah and so on and so forth, right? I put in Go Beyond, honestly the weakest card in my deck, and that was a we'll go back. Fulfill My Duty was a punish card. Go Beyond was supposed to patch my holes, right? If a deck was really fragile to the best attack in my deck, Tape Swing, I wanted 2 more copies of that card. And so I would take out a couple of attacks that weren't being very relevant, and I would put in more Go Beyonds. What's their plan? Versus the air decks right now, they take on momentum like it's nobody's business. I need to get rid of that momentum. Versus the air decks, a lot of them are running like mono highs. So planning ahead is really, really good, specifically against Jiro, right? Being able to enhance commit, say that your specialized sound waves is not going to do any damage, even if you do pump it, is really good, and it's some of the only response hate that we have inside of our deck. Shock Treatment is a punish card to stop my opponent from playing the game. Creepy Realization is a punish card. Sticky Balls is a punish card. So if you look inside of this sideboard, it's a lot of punish. So much punish. Hey, stop playing the deck how you want it to be played. You need to adapt your game plan in order to make the best out of it, right? And so there's a ton of punish, and my main board, like my entire plan with Zero, was just punish. That was my whole goal. Into Midoriya, I went 5-3 this deck at an event. We are playing one All Might 3. We're playing one for all 5% full cowling. We're playing 3 Capture Evildoers, 1 Harden, 2 You're So Obvious, 2 Pull No Punches. So obviously the All Might is a play pattern switch. The 5% Cowling Strike took it from a 2 up to a 3, and that was exclusively to punish my opponent as Nomu, exclusively for Nomu, to force them to block. Capture Evildoers is another punish card in order to punish the air decks for snapping that momentum, as well as a Patch My Holes deck, because I always put in the Capture Evildoers if I was going to play All Might 3, because All Might 3 wants to play these big long strings, and the more momentum that I can have to clear out my card pool and keep playing these attack strings, the better. Hardened, exclusively there for the high block. It's a one of, and I felt like I needed more high blocks, but I couldn't find room inside of the main board, so I stuck it in my sideboard. You're So Obvious to patch holes, Pull No Punches to patch holes, exclusively for Deadlock Hate. I fought against a bunch of water decks who would go to 14 foundations, and I was mainboarding two Pull No Punches, and I sideboarded the other two. And so making sure that I had some sort of deadlock pressure, because literally none of the other good symboled cards in my deck had deadlock pressure. So I had to make sure that I put it in my sideboard. And so in this example, I have literally every single option available to me of the way that I'm trying to play my sideboard, of patching my holes, punishing my opponent, and changing up my game plan if I so choose. And then last, I've got the Otaku list, and we've already talked about this just a little bit. So we've got Meteor Shower and Zero Gravity Lift. I would take out some of the Go Tall cards in order to put in some of the more Go wide cards like Meteor Shower. So I was not hitting it as hard, but I was hitting longer, right? We had plus Ultra in there for the bonus block in case we needed it. Wall Cling for a little more defense. Once again, a 2/4 with a 3 high block does not feel amazing when I'm trying to be more aggressive. And so I would take out a different card that I felt like was not performing quite as well, and I put in Wall Cling. 1 Giro in case I felt like I could not get the damage through, so I would change out my play pattern. And then 1 Indiscriminate Shock, and this card was in here exclusively as an attack with a low block, because the low block attacks that I had don't exist. I literally just wasn't playing any. And so I was not playing Indiscriminate Shocks. I mean, that's been fixed now, but I wasn't playing this card, and it's in here because I wanted a low block that did damage. And so once again, you can see, like, this deck is not about, or this sideboard is not about punishing my rival. This deck is all about making my deck better, right? So we look at these last two examples of, this is a lot of punish, this is capturing all 3 elements, and this is really focusing on switching up my attack, my play style, as well as patching up my holes. Not a lot of interaction with my opponent. So my final thoughts. I think sideboarding is a really important, really hard part of the game, but I don't think it is the linchpin of like why you're going to do well or be successful at events. I think it is something that will take your will raise you up a half letter grade, right? If you're a C player, your sideboard is not all of a sudden going to make you an A player. It will take you from a C to a C+, from a C+ to a B-. As long as you're doing it properly, as long as you're thinking about it. And a lot of your sideboard happens on the character select screen, right? It happens inside of deck building. That's half of it. And then the other half is, when do I use these 10 bonus cards? Which can be very, very tough to figure out. What is the best way? What do I need against this particular thing? And it's really, really hard to do if, like, you face off against a Tokoyami, they win the dice roll, they go first and build 5, you go and you build 4, they build another 5, you throw a poke, you fail your check, you build 2 more, and then they kill you. Okay, I don't know what to decide now. Your deck worked and mine didn't. What do I do? But yeah, I think like 80% of sideboarding happens on the character select screen, and then the other 20 might be how you implement it. But anyways, chat, YouTube comments. What are your guys' thoughts on sideboards? Do you use sideboards? I know there's plenty of really talented players who just don't use sideboards. They're like, my main board is the thing that I'm playing. I need my main board to be as consistent as possible, and so I'm not going to bother playing with sideboards. And then you start getting, some really big TAM decks, playing an 81 card All Might 2 deck. But let me know. Let me know down in the comments down below. Let me know over here on Twitch chat as we chat for just a little bit longer. I'd love to know your thoughts on sideboards. Do you use them? How you use them? Do you agree? Is there anything that you think I missed on this video? Once again, let me know. So with that, you guys, I'm going to bring this one to a close. Thank you much for hanging out, you guys. I appreciate it, and I wish you well.